G'day and welcome to On The Esky, an Australian sports podcast where we like to wrap up the week in the wide world of sport, drink a few stubbies and talk some absolute dribble regarding the big stories going on. We will be having a shorter episode this evening, so don't need to strap yourself in for 3 hours. We're probably looking at about 90 minutes. We did do an NFL draft companion on Friday, so if you're an NFL nuffy like we are, please check that out for all the reactions to the first round.
There's a solid 3 hours there for you to watch.
Yeah, if you want to listen to us dribble for 3 hours, you can check that out. And we'll also, immediately following our short episode now, we'll be talking with the Delhi Capitals media team live to preview their game this evening with Lucknow. It's an afternoon game over there in India, so that works out well for us given the time difference. On the menu for today's show, we have the IPL. It's starting to take shape, and Ben Stokes named as England captain. We will also be looking at the weeks that were in the AFL and NRL NBA playoffs, a really nice period to be looking at the playoffs. All the first round series are finished and the conference semi-finals starting tomorrow. So we'll be able to look back at the first round and give a quick preview to the conference semi-finals. And the later rounds of the NFL draft have happened over the weekend. We won't read out every pick that's gone through there, but we will talk about the big stories, who our teams have drafted and whether or not we thought they were good picks. Please remember, we do have timestamps. You can skip to the sports that you like or just watch the whole thing. It's only 90 minutes. Just give the whole thing a whirl. Yeah. We do have some socials, Instagram, Facebook and the like. Consider checking us out on that. And as always, please give a subscription if you like the content on this channel. Now, we like to shout a beer to kick off the show. This is an interesting one because normally we tell each other what the shout a beer is going to be beforehand. So me and James will be live reacting to Sean's shout a beer. We've got no idea what's about to come out of his mouth. Who are you shouting a beer to?
I told you it was not going to be that good. I just wanted to keep my theme from Friday and, to suck myself off a little bit. I want to shout myself a beer. Because
you want to suck yourself off. Yeah.
Marilyn Manson, he'd need a few ribs out. Keep that lie going.
That old chestnut. That was not a lie. That was a genuine, straight up fact from the late 90s. The Marilyn Manson chat. Oh, we're off to a
flyer. The reason for that, of course.
Your dad bod wouldn't let you do that.
Not anymore. Not that flexible,
I don't think anyone's body really allows for that. All right. Why are you sucking yourself off, Sean?
Yes. Because if you notice throughout my 3-hour chat, I talked about Nick Bonito throughout the entire lot as my favourite draft pick. And of course, pick number 64 for Denver, the first pick in the draft. Who do they pick? They pick my man, Nick Bonito. So I'm very happy.
And why do you like Nick Bonito so much?
I think I said it to you, Von Miller light.
Yep.
Of course, he needs to add a little bit of size, a bit of power, but he has all those measurables and the athletic traits you look for. I think let's call it destiny as well. Pick 64. That was the pick we got in the Von Miller trade. Who announced the trade? Who announced the pick for us? Elvis Dumerville.
Elvis
was out there. So and Elvis, of course, was mentor to Von originally. So to keep all that stars aligning, etc., etc. Very happy for Nick and very happy for my analysis into that fact, and I can pick Denver players, so that's about all I know. I watch too much Denver football, let's put it that way.
I think we surprised ourselves a little bit at how many in the first round we actually picked.
Yes.
It's
good.
Yeah, not too bad. I think maybe close to 50% of them. I reckon we got the exact player or at least the position. Check that out if you love the NFL and want to get some insight into the first round draft picks. And listen to the rest of today's show if you want to hear about Sean sucking himself off.
Well, hopefully that'll be the last. I'll suck myself off in the next 90 minutes.
90 minutes.
90-minute turnaround. Yeah, that's fair enough. Monkey, who would you like to shout a beer?
Yes, I'm not sucking anyone off. I am shouting a beer here. Just want to reiterate that one. I'm going to shout Mo Salah and also Sam Kerr this week. They both won the Football Writers Association Footballer of the Year for this year. Mo Salah obviously having a stellar season with Liverpool.
Career
as well.
Both.
22 goals in the Premier League at the moment. I think 30 in total across continental Liverpool. Egypt coming second in the African Cup as well. So
Yeah.
performing well.
They were my smoky.
That's
and
it.
They nearly got it done.
Yeah. And Sam Kerr, obviously, we've spoken about her all year pretty much.
She's a multiple recipient of Shout of Beers. So
Yeah.
well done to Sam. First time winning the award, isn't it?
Yeah, multiple recipient of Shout the Beer, first FWA award. Second for Mo. He got it, I think, back in 2018-ish when he came across Liverpool. Rounding out pretty good career. I mean, it's season. I don't know why I keep going back to career. For Liverpool this year.
You see retiring.
Yeah, exactly. It sounded like it's retiring.
Sean had the foresight on his Denver pick. I might have something here. Nah. As the EPL, I guess, goes into the business end of the season. Great season for Mo.
And we won't be looking directly at the EPL this week just due to our time constraints, but a little bit of an interesting matchup with Newcastle going down by a goal to Liverpool. Sean, you were saying that there was maybe a few questionable calls in that one regarding Sadio Mane and the like.
Yeah, it sounded like there's some favouritism for the Liverpool team to keep them in that. So they only won by one goal in that game. But I guess give them enough chances to score goals so they could get that win and stay in touch with City at the top. So
City also winning overnight 4-0. So no kind of new insights there for that battle for first.
Still
place.
a point in it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'll be shouting a beer. This poor fella, Chanel Harris-Tavita, the Warriors half, he ruptured his testicle on Anzac Day and played through it. Had surgery this week. He's looking like he'll be missing about 4 weeks. Pretty much anyone that's ever played contact sport, especially the contact sports like football or rugby league, that you don't wear anything that to protect to the old meat and 2 veg. So he ruptured his testicle, and I think he ended up playing 45 minutes after doing that. Jeez. So that is a testament to his toughness. I do remember back in the day, Brett Kamali, Noddy Kamali, he did it as well, and I think they had to remove him one of his testes, so he ended up functioning on just the one nut. But yeah, definitely shouting out Chanel a beer, and hopefully with the painkillers that he's on at the moment, he's allowed to have one beer courtesy of the Esky.
That's it.
Pretty nasty injury, that one. Now, the mop of the week. Last week we had a plethora of mops. We were handing out mops left, right and centre. The janitor's closet was absolutely full. And this week we kind of struggled to kind of think of one.
Bit on the spot this week, though. Yeah,
we've ended up giving it to the Minnesota Timberwolves, and KAT sort of, carrying on a little bit, waving to the crowds as if, it was like Kobe Bryant in his last game or something like that. Yeah. However, they did give up double-digit leads in multiple games. It was an interesting series. They went down 4-2 in the end to Memphis. Pretty interesting to see, 7th seed pushing the 2nd seed in the way they did. So it's only a small mop handed out. Sean, what was your take here on KAT and a bit of carry on?
Yeah, I think the vision was maybe a little bit on the nose is what people were kind of reporting is, hey, you and a lot of those games, like you said, double-digit leads and big double-digit leads.
Yeah.
And to give them give them up and allow them to be chased down, have really long runs, like 20-point runs. Maybe not the greatest appearance. They just took it easy, copped on chin, waved everyone goodbye, and head down to Cancun to join Lakers in the Nets. So, yeah.
It'd be a pretty fun party down there, I reckon. if that's what was happening, they were all down in Cancun together. So just a miniature mop handed out to the Minnesota Timberwolves. The poor people of Minnesota, the Vikings, notorious for choking a fair few times in the NFL. But look, they finished 7th. No one expected anything from them, really. The fact that they had those leads in the first place, a bit of a testament to where that team is moving forward. We've spoken at length about, this kind of development of a big 3 in KAT, D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards. I quite enjoyed watching them play a little bit this year, and it'll be interesting to see what they can do next year. KAT and Minnesota Timberwolves and your annoying fans that like to glue themselves to the floor, you can all have a little miniature mop this week. Okay, let's talk some cricket. Now, we spoke about Joe Root a couple of weeks ago, him stepping down, falling on his sword, getting the old tap on the shoulder, stepping down as England captain there. Geez, got my tongue then. KAT got my tongue, that is. And the number one favourite to take over the captaincy was Ben Stokes. That has come to fruition as of yesterday. I think it was officially announced. He was the favourite. We spoke pretty well about this. We spoke at length about it. I don't know.
Twice.
I don't know if we spoke well.
Do we ever speak well?
Do we ever speak well? No. My sentence structure that I just did then probably testament to that. Now, Stokes, there was all the, kind of conjecture around can a bloke coming off a mental health break take over one of the highest, pressure positions, in that country. And given, England's miserable run of it over the last sort of 18 months, we also know about Stokes and his fiery attitude towards the game, both on and off the field. How will he, go about captaining England? It's an interesting one. The best thing for us Aussies down here is it's another English captain that's not born in bloody England. And Stokes actually grew up in New Zealand, lived there till he was about 12. So I was looking at the past English captains. So now we've got 3 of the last 5 Test captains not being born in England. So Joe Root, obviously born in England, but Andrew Strauss captained England for many, many Tests, obviously South African born. And it's a little bit of a caveat. Kevin Peterson did captain them for just 3 Test matches. But out of the last 5 Test captains, 3 not born in England. And their current white ball captain, Owen Morgan, is Irish. So classic England, just poaching players, and obviously, this is not new information, but when we look through the annals of history and look at this run of captains, a lot of them, not born and 12 years old. It's not like he was over there as a 1-year-old. He's kind of did his primary schooling there in New Zealand. Now it's interesting.
He'd be eligible for Queensland.
Yeah, that's in Queensland, New Zealand.
Under
that's
13,
in Queensland. Now, they played New Zealand, coincidentally. It's just a month away. This is going to be a media frenzy, I'd imagine. If they can't win at home, the English press love to eat their own. It'll be interesting to see. As an Australian and, being butthurt from what he did to us at Headingley and the fire exchanges, I can't really say that I'm a big fan of him as a bloke. However, I don't really like it when media, just go absolutely ham on someone. So I'm kind of hoping for his sake that England at least perform, up to scratch. I don't know if they win this series. New Zealand's played pretty well. We know that they play pretty well over there in England. Lads, anything to add on Ben Stokes being named as captain? He was the short price favourite to take over.
Yeah, well, I think we talked to it to death about when Joe Root was on the way out, and then when he did go out, he was the most likely option, being the second best player in that team. Then questioned how good of a leader he was going to be, but maybe that's what they needed, a bit more of a fiery, aggressive dude. Yeah. So, time will tell. We'll see what they do in New Zealand. If they falter and fall in a heap, Ben Stokes might not be long for the captain.
In England, I guess.
Yeah, in New Zealand, yes.
That was a lot of criticism around Root, wasn't it? That he was a little bit maybe too conservative as a leader, didn't have that foot on the throat mentality. Maybe Ben Stokes will bring that, but time will tell. I think the whole scenario, I spoke about it a few weeks ago. I don't want to, flog a dead horse or anything, but I think Joe Root, falling on his sword after literally carrying that team for the last few years, I think it's still a little bit on the nose. But it'll be interesting to see how Stokesy goes as their leader.
Yeah, it's definitely been put in a tough position with the team that they've got. It's not like a captain can just turn that around. No, no matter how influential he is. They're still looking for the permanent coach as well.
They don't have a coach. So they don't have a top 6 outside of Joe Root.
That's it.
Anyways,
I suppose the only thing to that is they're probably lucky that, as good as New Zealand are, they're probably not doing it as good as they could be in the at least the World Test Championship.
Yeah,
so,
they lost at home to Bangladesh. That was quite historic. Where are they? They're kind of middle of the table there, aren't they?
Yeah, sort of leading the bottom of the pack there. Sitting fifth, sixth there. Yeah.
Yeah. So going to be an interesting one for the World Test Championship. England, you'd say, are no hope sitting down there in dead last. But New Zealand, if they can jag a win or two over there in England, they'll keep their hopes of defending their championship alive.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump over to the IPL. We're starting to get sort of business endish in the IPL. Let's pick up from match 38. That was about a week ago. That's the last game that we haven't talked about, and that was the Punjab Kings defeating CSK there by 11 runs. Shikhar Dhawan, 88 not, became the second player to score 6,000 runs in IPL history. Virat Kohli being the only other one to do that. And Bardi Rayudu was the lead contributor in the run chase with a scintillating 78 off 39, but it was just a little bit too much for even the king finisher, MS Dhoni, to get it done. Now, did you boys see Dhoni's going to be the captain? Jadu...
giving it back to Dhoni, I believe.
Giving it back, yeah, obviously a long-time captain of CSK. Jadu, we've spoken about how he is one of the best, all formats players in the world at the moment. But yeah, I don't know if it was his decision or if it was, the management there at CSK. They've gone back to MS Dhoni to captain that team. And just a shout out to the Punjab Kings fast bowler Rishi Dhawan. Played his first IPL game in 4 years. He missed the start of the season because he got hit in the face by a cricket ball while playing in the Ranji Trophies, like their Sheffield Shield, and he was bowling in like one of those face shields that you see in the NBA. After someone suffers a facial injury in the NBA, so you don't really see that too much in cricket. But there you go, Rishi Dhawan bowling wheels with the old face mask on.
Yeah.
Match 39, the Rajasthan Royals defeated Royal Challengers Bangalore. Josh Hazlewood, very good in that one, 2 for 19 off 4 overs.
Has he been the best Aussie so far, you think, in the IPL?
Warner's made a few runs, yeah, but I think Hazlewood probably...
Bowler-wise?
Definitely. Definitely in bowling terms. Even Warner scored runs, but I still don't think he's in the top 10 for runs. Okay. Where is he there? He's 13th. So, you'd probably say Josh Hazlewood has been the best of the Aussies so far. Mm-hmm. And he got the big wicket in this one of Joss Buttler, removing him for just 8, one of the few knocks that Joss Buttler hasn't managed to score runs in this one. And RCB, the batting woes just continue for him. Kohli opened the batting. He was coming off those consecutive first ball ducks. He just made 9. And Glenn Maxwell getting the first ball quacker this time. It was Kuldeep Sen, 4 for 20, and Ravi Ashwin just taken apart RCB. It was the lowest total defended to this point in the IPL, which is pretty surprising at 144. Obviously, you don't normally win games at 144, but the lowest one defended in the whole tournament at match 39. Pretty interesting. Now, RCB can definitely make the top 4. I think they're sitting 5th at the moment, possibly 6th. If you wouldn't mind just bringing up that ladder. Fifth. But the problem is it's the net run rate that's really starting to become an issue. There's been games where they've lost quite badly. We spoke last week about them getting skittled for 68 or whatever it was. And their net run rate now is at minus 0.56 in a 10-team comp. With only a top 4 playing finals, you want your net run rate to be pretty strong. So that's starting to look like a really big problem there for RCB. Match 40, we saw Gujarat Titans play Sunrisers Hyderabad, 2 of the surprise packets in this year's IPL. This match showed a lot of quality, and if you like runs, it was a good one. Gujarat making 199 off the back of Abhishek Sharma, 62 for him, and Aidan Markram. They gave the Sunrisers a good target to chase, needing 200 to win. Shout to Shashank Singh, 25 of 6. Shawshank Redemption. If you get something going there, might call him Morgan Freeman, Shawshank Singh. He hit Lockie Ferguson for 3 sixes off the last 3 balls of the innings, and even Rashid Khan got the treatment. He's normally very economical. He went for 45 in this one. It was a good run chase from Hyderabad off the back of Widaram Saha, the older wicket keeper for Sunrisers, 68 of 38. But shout out to Umran Malik. He has been a real revelation this year in the IPL. 5 for 25. He took all of the wickets, and his speed cleaned up 4 of Gujarat's batsmen back in the first innings, but not enough there. Sunrisers just falling short. Match 41, we saw our Delhi Capitals get a win over Kolkata Knight Riders. Kolkata, the only bats to make any sort of influence for Kolkata was Shreyas Iyer with 42 and Nitish Rana with 57. The rest of the top order got cleaned up, including our boy Aaron Finch. We were happy to see him score a 50 last week, but back to that poor form that we've seen of late from Aaron Finch. 3 of 7, he was dropped the ball before he got clean bowled. And I just got a note here, the commentators describe his shot as an ugly agricultural heave. I don't know how you can make your shot look agricultural unless you're, wielding a hoe or some kind of farming device.
Throw a shovel into the dirt or something?
Yeah, I don't know how you make it agricultural. I don't know. Maybe someone that's better versed in English can explain why that's agricultural. Kuldeep Yadav, he's been really, really good. I think he's second at the moment in the wicket taking. In the IPL, he had 4 for 14. He is second in the purple cap race with 17 wickets. Mitch Marsh came back after having that bout of COVID where he did get quite sick. It'd be interesting to see if he gets named tonight. Would love to see him making some runs. He didn't have much of an impact in that one with just 13. David Warner, we just spoke about his good form. He had 42 of 26. And Rovman Powell, they paid big money for the West Indian, and this is why 33 of 16 to finish off the run chase with an over to spare. KKR, they started the tournament very good, winning 3 of their first 4. They've now lost 5 on the trot, and they are looking in big, big trouble. DC, 4 wins, 4 losses. They've gone win-loss, 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 win-loss. So they haven't won back-to-back. So a big, big matchup tonight against Lucknow Super Giants, who sit in 3rd. For the Caps, who are currently sitting in 6th, but they do have 2 games in hand. Two games in hand from RCB, who sit ahead of them in 5th. Match 42, Lucknow, speaking of, they beat Punjab. Kasiga Rabada was the main man for the Kings, taking 4 for 38. The ex-Delhi Capital, actually, getting that important wicket of KL Rahul for just 6, who has been this, I think he's still number 2 in the orange cap. Just clicking back over there. Yes, still number 2, 374. And number 2, he's a long way ahead of Hardik Pandya there. You'd think 1, 2 is pretty much set. Yeah. Who knows? Still 5 or 6 games left, depending on which team. And the Lucknow bowlers did a really good job. Krunal Pandya, 2 for 11. Chamira, 2 for 17. Moshin Khan, 3 for 24. Lucknow sit in 3rd. So we've seen both Lucknow and Gujarat, the 2 new franchises, doing very well. Speaking of, Gujarat beat RCB. Kohli finally got some runs, 50 out of 53. It was good to see him spend some time at the crease. Scored kind of slowly, if you're striking at 110 and you face 53 balls, is it a good thing in the IPL? But at least for his confidence, to get a few runs on the board, might be good for him mentally. Although RCB not able to win that one. Gujarat, they're looking like the last over chasing specialists. They've had 2 this week and 5 overall, including 2 really good ones on the last ball. Rahul Tewatia and David Miller, very good with them. The Titans have won 5 straight. And boys, Mumbai Indians, they're off the donut. No nudie run around the Wankhede. They beat the Rajasthan Royals. They finally got a win, and they went with 3 Aussies in their team. I think that's the first time that all 3 Aussies in Dan Sams, Riley Meredith, and Tim David got a gig. David, 20 not out off just 9 balls, so showing that nice hitting. And then Sams, faced 1 ball, hit it for 6, and got the run chase home. Riley Meredith also pretty good for Mumbai, 2 for 24. Obviously on big money last year, and then I think he's making about 1/10 of what he got paid last year. So good to see him doing well there. Rohit Sharma continues to struggle. He just had 2. And Butler shocked me. Butler made runs in this one, 67 off 52. Didn't strike it as, he's been striking it like 170, so not quite as good as he normally does. But yeah, his efforts not enough to get Rajasthan home in that one. Now, Monks, we've got the table up there. Gujarat, top of the table, 8-1, followed by Rajasthan and Lucknow. They're 4 points behind Gujarat. So Gujarat in a really strong position to finish first. Look, they'd have to lose every game pretty much out here to miss out. So I think you can lock them in for a final spot.
Definitely.
Then we've got Sunrisers Hyderabad and RCB both on 10 points. The caveat there being that RCB have played 2 more games and have that shocking net run rate. DC and Punjab Kings both on 8 points in 6th and 7th there, and I think it's time to start putting a line through KKR, CSK and Mumbai on 6, 4 and 2 points respectively.
Yep.
Did you want to bring up we've already kind of alluded to it. Yes, so Orange Cap, Joss Butler, 566 runs, striking at 155. So he is nearly 200 runs ahead of KL Rahul. I think that orange cap is going to stay on Joss's head.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we spoke about KL a long way ahead of Hardik Pandya there. The top scoring Aussie, David Warner, 13th there. So he's been in some pretty decent form. He just hasn't gone on to make that really big score. I think he's got 350s there. 350s, but he's striking well. He's striking at nearly 160, and he had a bit of a down year last year at Sunrisers. Obviously, getting dropped essentially at the end of the season last year. So good to see the Bull, the Reverend, back amongst the runs. And then if you want to just go over to the Purple Cap,
just also on Warner though, he has got 3 matches less than a couple of the other blokes as well.
So very true.
It's probably the reason why the runs are down. So.
Yeah, well,
that's it.
He's the top scorer for Delhi, and like we were saying, RCB have got 2 games ahead of them. Interestingly, though, no RCB players in that top 10 because their batting woes have been well documented. But if you just want to jump over to the Purple Cap there, we've got Yuzvendra Chahal of the Rajasthan Royals. So both Royals players leading the batting and bowling at the moment with 19 wickets. Kuldeep Yadav just mentioned he has been a revelation for Delhi Capitals. He has 17 wickets, followed by Umran Malik, who we spoke about before, who bowls wheels. He's got 15, as does Wanindu Hasaranga and T. Natarajan. Josh Hazlewood down there for the Aussies. He's missed the first few games, so he's played 6. He's got 10 poles, economy 7.6, strike rate 13.5. I think it's fair to say he's... let's call it even between Hazlewood and Warner, I think, as the best Aussies so far. Obviously, Hazlewood, the standout Australian bowler.
Yep. By far.
Yeah, well, Cummins hasn't been playing.
Getting spanked.
Yeah. Dan Sams is down there. He's got 7 wickets. He's only played the 6 games. Riley Meredith has only played 3. Yeah, Aussie bowlers not getting much of a look in.
No. Not after last season as well.
That'll do our cricket chat. We will, if you want to listen to us talk some more smack with probably a few more listeners, actually. Sometimes have to talk in front of about 25,000 people on those live watch parties. So we'll see how that goes. It's 6 o'clock now down under, so we've got about an hour and 15 till we will need to join them. NRL, boys. NRL, we were on Anzac Day last week, so I went home and watched the Dragons win on Anzac Day. They were paying about $4.50. Very happy for that. And they've just beaten the West Tigers 12-6, 3 in a row for the Dragons. I think that puts them in 10th place, but there's a log jam in the middle of that ladder. We'll have a look at
some safety
in a sec. And Melbourne putting on an absolute cricket score against the Warriors, 70-10. It was 14-10 at the half, and then they just went into sixth gear in that second half. We were talking about a pre-show. The biggest margin in the NRL era is 70 points, beating the Sharks 74-4 in 2003. So they were 10 points short of owning that record. But if they'd started it from the first minute, they could have got another Melbourne Storm record.
Craig Bellamy halftime chat must be real good compared to Ricky Stewart's.
Maybe Ricky needs to have a listen to Bellyache's halftime blow-ups. Can you imagine them leading the Warriors just 14-10 on Anzac Day? They probably did cop a bit of a spray for
they should have scored 40 in that.
Not being up enough. Interesting as well. I think we have mentioned it on the show before, but the biggest margin ever in the New South Wales Rugby League, ARL, NRL, the history of rugby league, if you will. The St George Dragons, mighty St George Dragons, back in 1935, 91-6 over the poor Canterbury Bulldogs. I think in those days they were the Canterbury Berries. It's a good, good name for a football team. It really incites fear into the others. You're going up against the Berries this week. Whether they were raspberries or blackberries or strawberries, I'm not really sure.
Boys and berries.
Yeah, let's go. Blueberries, blue and white. Maybe they were the blueberries.
Yeah, that's where the colours came from.
And then the poor Dogs, I don't know what was going on, salary cap issues back in 1935. They lost to East the next week 87-7, which is the second biggest margin ever. So the poor Canterbury Berries back in 1935. All right, let's talk more recent rugby league. Round 8, Sean, Broncos, they beat the Sharks. This was a big upset, given how well the Sharks have been playing. Did you catch much of this one?
Yeah, I caught the second half of this. They played unders. I think the Sharks, and Adam Reynolds was just too good for them, controlling them, run around. And they kind of wore them out. So whether just the matchup wise for the Sharks and Bulldogs, just Sharks and Broncos, that the Broncos just mashed up better and played more to their style of footy. But they, of course, got the job done. And I think Stags was probably a big one because they kept the Sharks very, very quiet, and especially a certain centre on that side of the field. Yeah, very, very quiet.
Big Sif for Talakai after playing one of the best halves of rugby league I've ever seen in my life against Manly on the Thursday night before. Was kept very, very quiet, and it's really pertinent to the Origin chat, which is going around. Latrell likely to miss game one with that hamstring tendon injury. A lot of people have Stags and Talakai up there, of course, with Stephen Crichton as their picks to jump into the centres there. And Stags, his Origin stock definitely increased after this matchup.
Yeah, big time, because if you get to play, is it Harper Morgan? Or was it Morgan Harper?
Morgan Harper.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember which order it was in.
Two first names. Sean getting a name wrong. That's never happened before on the Esky. Don't worry about that.
I had the name right, just in the wrong order. Well, if you can't play him every week, then you're not going to get picked in the Origin squad.
He did get really found out.
Yeah,
poor Harper Morgan.
Yeah, and got dropped straight away. So
yeah, they had Tolotau Cooler or Cola. I don't know if it's Cooler or Cola. Can of Cola. He's the speed demon that everyone's sort of speaking highly of. He actually ended up getting the gig for Manly, who we'll get to in just a second. Yeah. Broncos.
So I came back to earth a little bit in this one, but the Broncos were good. They kind of ground this game out towards the end and scored some points late to give them a nice buffer to win the game.
The Broncos have been weird this year. Sometimes you watch them like you did on Thursday night, like you did back in round one, where they beat South. They defend really well, and you think, geez, is this a good football team? And then other weeks they just dish up horrendous footy. So they're definitely a hard one to pick. I'm sure all of us picked the Sharks in this one. They play South on Thursday Night Football again this week. So obviously all the rhetoric around Adam Reynolds playing his old team. They got the Bickies over them.
Let's hope he doesn't get COVID this time.
Yeah, that's true, because he didn't play in that. He
missed the first one.
Yeah, good point. So Reynolds actually playing against his old team for the first time. It's interesting how many people get COVID and how many, like the mind, covering so many sports, tends to evade you sometimes. But yeah, he did miss that first game. So it'd be interesting to see how he goes against his old team, especially after they did beat him without him.
Yep.
Okay, Friday night, Panthers beat the Titans 18-4. The Titans actually defended well for a change against, the best team in rugby league.
Yeah.
Go figure. They led 4-0 at the half, and then Panthers just showed their class. Way too good for them in the second half. 18 unanswered points, led by the People's Chin, Nathan Cleary. Elite kicking game, 3 tackle bars, 2 try assists, and a meat pie for himself. Isaiah Yeo, one of the most consistent guys in the NRL. He was great again. And Big Tino, I think he's relishing getting the captaincy over there at the Gold Coast. He was pretty good in a losing side. Now, the big storyline, I suppose, out of this one is the $1.2 million man, Dave Fafita. He suffered a grade 2 MCL. Looks like he'll be out for 4 weeks. The Titans, their season's not really going as well as they would have liked, and to be losing their essentially marquee player for 4 weeks, that's not going to do them any good, you wouldn't think. Panthers Eels next week. That'll be an interesting matchup. Battle of the West, and the Titans play the Chooks. Yeah, hard to see them winning that one, but we'll get to the Chooks in a sec. They have been definitely quite lackluster in the last few weeks. Yep. Now, the later game on Friday night was South beating Manly. Now, Carl Lawton got sent to the bin in just the 9th minute for a pretty bad spear tackle on Cam Murray. I remember watching it live and then seeing him get sent to the bin, and I thought, oh, fuck me, here we go. Another game that gets decided by a shit refereeing decision, yada, yada, yada. Then I watched the replay, and, they showed it over and over and over again. I think that's fair to be sent off. You look at the position that Cam Murray lands on there.
Yeah, it's the high point of the shoulder. Like
that is,
more towards neck than it is towards back.
Well, he lands on his neck. Yeah, not
past
his
horizontal.
Shoulder. The horizontal on the rest. He's vertical there. He's getting absolutely dropped on his head. And I watched it back and I thought, oh, Pepe, give the refs some kind of credit. If you're going to send people off, I think it should be for tackles like that. Now, Cam bounced up and he was fine, but that's a few inches away from being something really horrible. We spoke last week about the horrible situation with Nathan Stapleton, Alex McKinnon come to mind. Yep. You want to send guys in the NRL, I think it needs to be for stuff like that where, you really are putting another player at some really, really high risk of sustaining a really horrible injury.
So they played with 12 men.
12 men for
led a lot of large portions.
Yeah, they led at half time. They really played well with 12 men. I think the big thing when you go to 12 men is trying to sustain it for 80 minutes. So obviously Souths ran over them in the second half. But considering they were down 12 men for 71 minutes of the game, pretty good effort from Manly. DCE, I think he's been listening to the show. There's only one way to explain his recent form in a losing side. I think it was about round 4, Manly hadn't been, or maybe about round 3 when Manly had started a bit slow. Melbourne were playing pretty good, and we were saying
Turbo is probably out.
Thereabouts. And we were saying I think Jerome Hughes has really cemented himself as the number 2 best halfback in the NRL. I'm still going to I'll stick with that statement. We've seen what the Melbourne Storm have done recently. Jerome Hughes a big part of that, but DCE is still a very good halfback. So just wanted to go back about a month and kind of clarify. Look, I don't think that statement was too much of a knock on DCE. More just a pat on the back for how well Jerome Hughes has been playing.
Yeah, I agree. Might put the AFL on, Monks.
Yes, the Dragons have won. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. We'll talk about it at length, I think, in just a second.
I just want to on Manly. Have they lost 3 in a row?
No, 2. They've lost 2 in a row, I think.
Yeah, since Turbo's knee injuries. Yeah.
But they won without Turbo.
That's the first one. The first game of his way. But yeah.
So 40-22 lost to South. 34-22 from the CFC for Talakai show in the first half with that wind where all the points except for a penalty goal was scored at one end. So they've lost 2 in a row, and then going back, they did beat the Gold Coast Titans and Newcastle and the Canberra Raiders before that. So they will actually start to look pretty good. But yeah, obviously, no Turbo, 12 men, pretty hard to pull out a win.
Yeah.
Cody Walker, I think he probably had his best game of the season so far. There's been a lot of sort of talk around him, was he reliant on Adam Reynolds, and that's why he was, being this electric ball runner, scores a lot of tries for a 6. I think he was quite good. And speaking of scoring tries, Keon Kaloa-Matangi, he scored again. He's an edge-back rower. He has scored 4 tries in 8 games, so 50-50 chance, and I got him at $5 in my same game multi, which went down. But thank you very much to Keon Kaloa-Matangi. If you do like to
Back on form.
if you like to have a little flirt, he's
a good shout.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Dave Fafita in that he or if you want to have a real throwback, like a Beaver Menzies as a try scoring edge back rower, definitely likes to get a sniff of a meat pie. Now, yesterday there were upsets galore. We've spoken a bit about it. This is parity-ish in the league, outside of the teams called the Penrith Panthers and Melbourne Storm.
Unless 1 and 2, everyone else, it's...
But everyone else, on any given Saturday, in this case, anyone can win. Sean, did you catch much of the Raiders yesterday?
Unfortunately, yes.
Well, they only lost a lot by a point, but it was a fade. They held a lead.
Oh, they were.
It went to Golden Point. I was on a boat, motherfucker, in Sydney, enjoying the nice weather and having a few beers out there. I did not see a single bit of this other than the highlights and having a look at the fantasy scores. I'm going to lose I'm assuming that Jackson Hastings didn't just score 120 points in a losing side. I'm going to lose my fantasy matchup against a bloke who played Dale Finucane and Andrew Fafita, who both didn't play. So, take what I say on this podcast with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts in this Raiders loss? Was it the classic kind of, fade? Did they really shit the bed in the second half?
Yes, they played terrible in the second half, turned the ball over. It wasn't as bad as last week, but it was still pretty bad. Mm-hmm. They faded towards the end defensively and gave the Warriors plenty of opportunities to get points. Bit of a lazy penalty from Horsburgh, which, high contact, which probably bounced up off the shoulder. And commentators by all accounts was like, that's probably not high shot. So
okay.
Got a freebie there. And then by that point, you're just like, Sean Johnson's going to kick a field goal. We're going to lose. He did that to us last time. Sean Johnson's a bit of a bogey player for the Raiders team. But they should have scored 40 points in the first half. They were so dominant. I think by the 20th minute, they'd had 22 tackles inside the opposition's half to like 4. Like they were...
and just couldn't
convert to
put it
points.
away.
They would... that first 20 minutes, they were just putting them to sword. And
it
ended up being, very dismal for them. And I wouldn't surprise me if a few... they'll be looking at that squad and seeing what they can do. Rapana actually was directly responsible for 2 like really soft tries. Like one, he was running back to pick the ball up and he fell over, and the Warriors guy just ran through, picked it up, and scored a try. And then he threw a pass to to Kottridge that bounced, and he missed to handle it and went straight to the Warriors guy, and he scored.
So not defensive errors, both handling errors.
And Rapana didn't really add too much, and then he was ruined by the second half. He really doesn't have the legs for as a fullback. So and considering they didn't play Nickel Klostag till like the last 5 minutes, and they had Savage just do it on the wing again, doing absolutely fucking nothing. I would have put Rapana on the wing and Savage at the back there and hope for the best. But
interesting,
anyway,
because when Rapana was playing fullback a lot last year, when Sam Kay was out with that long neck injury, he was actually really quite good, I thought. So, I don't know if it's just a teething thing for him, or maybe he's just had a Barry Crocker and, it's hurt his confidence.
It was an absolute shocker for him in this one, unfortunately. And he was directly responsible for allowing the Warriors back into this game. But either way, they lose again. And outside of Jack White, and I'm not sure what they're going to do in that squad to potentially get back to winning games.
Yeah, they sit 14th now. They play the Dogs at least next week, an enticing 14th versus 15th matchup.
And they played the Dogs, 2 weeks ago? Didn't they play them recently and just got a win over the Doggies?
Yeah, was it 2 weeks ago? Is the NRL schedule really that?
Scheduled pretty bad.
Cowboys.
I thought it was pretty recent.
Penrith. It doesn't come to mind.
Maybe
Are you sure it was Canterbury?
I haven't played the Dogs this year.
I haven't played the Dogs? Right,
You've been on the Hong Kongs, bro.
Yeah.
They haven't played them at all this year.
There you go. How much attention I've been paying. Maybe I'm thinking, we'll play the Dogs and we'll just lose to them. So
This is coming from a guy that I reckon 99% of his sporting intake in the last 2 weeks has been watching college football tape and getting ready for the NFL draft. So I'll give you a pass on that one. But also maybe lay off the Hong Kongs.
Anyway.
Interesting you mentioned that the Raiders were making error after error after error. Mark's got the stats there. 18 errors from the Raiders, 17 from the Warriors. An error, that's 35 errors, just about an error every 2 minutes. I can't imagine that's a great game to watch for the neutral viewer. At least it was close, I guess.
It was a terrible game of football. It was pretty close to rivaling that, what was that, Tigers... was that Bulldogs game?
The Thursday night one. It was Tigers Titans.
Yeah,
and we gave the NRL the mop of the week for
That's right.
for scheduling that on a Thursday night and it being one of the worst games of NRL footy ever.
They had points in this game at least, but it was
not quite that bad.
It was still pretty bad. Like from a two professional football teams, it was like it's a bit dismal.
Ricky safe?
I think so.
Raiders won't sack him.
Nah, he's a Raiders legend.
He's a Raiders legend.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah, if he was at the Dragons or the Tigers, he'd be gone next week.
The Broncos don't mind sacking a coach.
Exactly.
True.
If he was at one of those premier high membership clubs, he probably wouldn't have lasted.
Well, that's right.
A couple of weeks.
Your Canberra Raiders, they kind of fly under the radar. Obviously, we get a lot of Canberra media here, being Canberrans, but you don't get the national kind of attention, that say a Broncos or a big Sydney club like a South or a Roosters or something gets. I can't see a world in which Ricky Stewart loses that coaching job ever. Credit to the Warriors. They're 4-4. So despite, this being a bit of a sloppy game, a lot of us, I think we all had them in the bottom 2, bottom 3 when we did our season preview. They play the Sharks next week, so that'll be a bit of a litmus test. But I think Tohu Harris is pretty close to coming back, who's been an elite forward for them, rehabbing his ACL. Josh Curran, who's been very good for them as an edge back rower this year, he's done his MCL. He'll be out for 4 weeks. But I only just saw this today. Ash Taylor retired, only 27 years of age. Now, the poor bloke, he got absolutely crucified, essentially, for being on that massive contract at the Titans. Was it 1.3 million?
It was
1.2
a mil at least, and that's the chat, of course. The Titans.
Maybe 1.1. It was over $1 million.
Yeah, it was over $1 million.
It was over $1 million.
And the concern was, the Titans didn't get maybe their value for money out of his play. When
you spend $2.3 million of your salary cap on 2 players in him and Fafita, and paying an edge back rower that kind of money, it was.
Well, he was on $1 million for 3 or 4 years while there at the Titans, so he was there for a good hot minute, getting paid well, and not really delivering results. But
there's always more to the story.
If you've got chronic hip injuries, then he's got bad hips. So he's been forced to retire. He won't play for the Warriors this year.
We've barely seen him. I think he did play against the Titans actually back in round 2, but I don't know if he's played many games for them. 27 years of old, your hips are absolutely cooked. It just goes to show
that's pretty bad.
You got to be careful. I'm sure we've been guilty of it before. You remember Starkey when he was underperforming last year, and everyone's into him, and this and that.
His old man's got cancer,
and his old man was dying, and then at least I think we do a pretty good job of it. Obviously we do this as a hobby, so there's not really much money involved. We come back and say, we got that wrong. Whereas
definitely.
you don't see that. Anyone that's fucking crucified Ash Taylor over the last few years, are they going to write an op-ed of I'm sorry for crucifying this guy and calling him every name under the sun when he's 27 years old and his hips are fucked? It's not a nice joint to have problems with either.
We definitely critique the on-field product.
Of course,
like the performance you're putting out. But there's always usually a story to it, and there's same with Jared. He was definitely underperforming, and the fact is his body is basically cooked, and that's why he hasn't been playing.
Yep, exactly right. And in this, we say it every week, but it is a modern day gladiator sport. For guys that like watching a lot of different contact sports. Yes, you do have the high impact collision of the NFL, the power, the speed, but I still think rugby league is the toughest sport in the world, essentially.
There's not many blokes in the NFL making 40 tackles.
Not many. There's 0.
Of course, the offensive defensive linemen they beat themselves up, but they're not
And it gives,
not like tackling each other.
I'll tell you what,
So it is a different.
the old chat that you get from, boomer Aussies that have only ever watched, cricket or rugby league their whole life and couldn't tell you what, American sport is. And they're soft cocks and they wear their helmets and their pads and this and that. I hate hearing that kind of shit, but also I do think that the NRL is the toughest game that there is. I'm not really sure. I don't know what the Dagestani Wrestling League or something is like.
There's probably.
I'm sure that some.
I'd be more worried about their soccer league than I would be their wrestling, because those boys would come to play. Let's put it that way.
Definitely.
I suppose we should preface that we're talking about team sports here. We're not talking about individual.
Even say the UFC. Like we're big fans of the UFC.
Get head kicks.
And we've seen some absolute wars. You look at guys' faces. You look at the Korean Zombies face after that Volk fight, and you think, "Holy shit, you are a tough fuck." But then the counter to that is, an elite fighter. You may be fighting 4 times a year. So I don't know. It is apples and oranges. You can't kick someone in the head, I suppose, in the NRL. But just the repeated strain on your body. They played.
Just reminded me that Corey Horsburgh was put on a report yesterday for a facial. That's what the ref said.
A facial.
He gave a facial. They put a report from facial. Sorry, I had to bring that up.
Did he rub some nice moisturising cream in? Is that the?
Yeah, he was rubbing. He was rubbing the opposite.
He was a little bit more R-rated.
One of these high price facial gift vouchers that you get for the missus.
And he said, "You're on report."
If it's the other facial,
and the commentators,
I've never experienced that. I've only seen it in short films.
That's the first time anyone's been put on a report for a facial. So.
There you go. That's maybe shout beer worthy as well. Miss one there. In Corey Horsburgh.
I just
handed out facials. Ash Taylor, just going back to him.
Phrasing.
116 games in his NRL career, nearly 114 of them at the Gold Coast Titans. Yep. He was a Toowoomba boy and grew up in St George, Queensland. And I didn't realise he's also part Indigenous. I do remember him actually playing in some of those Indigenous All-Star games. Played his youth football with the Broncos and then picked up by the Titans. Mate, all the best with your retirement. I hope those hips aren't so bad that, that they're causing you issues in your day-to-day life. Obviously, being able to walk around a golf course is, takes a little bit less impact than playing NRL footy. So hopefully he's got something lined up. And all that money that he did make, hopefully that it's gone.
Saved a few of them.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, by all accounts, he's still around the club. He was in the booth with Nathan Brown yesterday. So I assume he'd be around. Yeah,
maybe do a mentoring role at the Warriors this year, and then I don't know when they go back to New Zealand. I imagine he stays in Queensland, but who knows? Shout out to Ash Taylor on your NRL career, which obviously has been cut short. Now, this was an interesting one. Bulldogs, Roosters. The Dogs have beaten the Chooks 16-12. I was on a booze cruise, as I mentioned, and I missed all of the Raiders game. I was actually watching a lot of this. Towards the end of the game, I remember Canterbury winning. Can I give you any expert analysis? Was I sitting there with my laptop out, writing notes, as I sometimes do for this podcast? And no. I know that the Dogs won. I know that it was a big upset. I looked at the fantasy scores, and it was all their new recruits that played very well in Pangai Jr. and Matt Burton, Josh Adokar, the Fox. He got a double. Chooks fans be pretty disappointed, you reckon, after going down to the Dragons on Anzac Day and the Dogs. Teddy was very, very good in a losing side. 299 run meters, nearly got that 300, 11 tackle busts and a meat pie. A few people kind of been, yarning this year, or is he still the best fullback in the league?
People question his origin position, whether he should play one considering the other.
I think it's bullshit. I think it's bullshit.
He's just been flying a little bit under the radar this season, I suppose.
The Roosters are clunky. That's the problem. Like, he's doing the best he can. It's the issue's not with him. I think it's more. We saw it with the Roosters. They started real clunky. They kind of found a bit of chemistry. Then I think they've lost their way again a little bit.
Yep.
Potentially maybe through the hooker. The hooker's been a bit unders. The last couple of
Verrills?
Yeah, Verrills, yeah. I think he was only played 60 or 70 in this match as well.
Okay.
So, still good minutes for a hooker, but they had him on the bench. I think he actually was banged up a little bit.
A lot of them play 80 these days as well, so
yeah.
you have to factor that in. But
clunky. But
as a Dragons fan, hate seeing the Chooks lose. Oh,
Yeah.
it's really cry me a river.
The big storyline with this, though, was Gus was running training this week at the Bulldogs. So, and then, of course,
and then all the
dinosaurs talking about
Sack Baz, he's useless. It's all
exactly.
his fault. Nothing
Gus
to do
has
with
already taken over, etc., etc. And Trent basically said, well, I asked him to do it. So, he's definitely coached at a very high level in the past and has a great football brain.
And as annoying as he can be, with his state of origin,
He's biased, especially on commentary.
And he's biased, and he says...
even when the Bulldogs are playing.
He says stuff sometimes, and you're like, shut up, Gus. And you think...
It's not the 80s anymore.
That's right. And you think, how does that face look like that without being stung by a whole nest of wasps? All of that aside, the bloke has one of the best footballing brains in this country. Yeah, exactly right. So, when Gus talks, people listen, and it's paid dividends for them.
They obviously listened to him at the Bulldogs because they came out and played a good game of footy to get over the Roosters.
I think Baz cops a fair bit of unfair criticism as well. Like, it's a pretty shit job that he walked into with not much of a list. Well, they've improved
he walked
slightly
into
this year.
The Manly job after Des Hasler probably had paid ruined the salary cap. Guys on ending deals with backloaded. And he really didn't get much support there. And
two tough jobs for Trent Barrett. Now, am I going to defend someone that I kind of idolised as a kid? Playing
for your club,
playing six for my club. He's from Temora, where my missus' family's from. Maybe there is a little bit of red and white in the eyes there. At the end of the day, they get paid well. They need to produce results. Maybe some of the criticism is somewhat warranted, but interesting there that Gus comes down, runs a training session or two, and they come out and beat the Chooks.
Yeah, they've actually got a pretty good run over the next couple of weeks. So we mentioned that they've got the Raiders, and then they've got the Knights after that, who
been dismal.
Since
Ponga signed his deal.
Yep, Tigers, which will probably be a test for them.
Dragons. They'll probably lose that Dragons game 44-0, but outside of...
so.
That's 4 bottom 8 teams currently, and include... Well, what do we got? Raiders are 14th, Knights are last, Tigers are 13th. So that's like you literally... The next 3 weeks are playing bottom end teams. So if they can win 1, 2, 3 of them, maybe
put you back in the conversation.
Exactly.
And when you look at the start of the season, like they had had a lot of top end.
Well, and they had a lot of close losses. They got pants by Melbourne. They're fucking water's wet. Everyone gets pants by Melbourne. But outside of that, they've defended pretty well. Their big issue has been scoring points. I think before last night's game, they were saying Melbourne scored more points on Anzac Day than Canterbury had scored all year.
So I now remember where I got confused with the Raiders playing the Bulldogs, because it was actually Brisbane I was playing the Bulldogs. That game.
Because you go for 2 teams.
That's it.
Interesting.
It was 1 week after week.
It all blends together. But Kyle Flanagan in that game was very much like absent. Like I think that's the issue. Like he's the halfback of the squad, and he barely gets involved and until like the last tackle, and he kicks the ball. Like I think they need more direction from their halves for them to get points.
When did Baz bring him back into the team though? He's only played 3 games, I feel like.
Yeah.
So
I think he came back for that Brisbane game.
No, round 6 he played against South. I feel like that was the game that he came back into the side. They played Penrith. Did he play that game? No, he played that game too soon. I think he's played 4 games, Kyle Flanagan. I'm glad that Kyle Flanagan's back in that side. Obviously did really well at the Chooks and has struggled a little bit at the Dogs. I've just looked at the time. We're going to have to...
get a rig on. You got half an hour.
Get a wriggle on. Cowboys smacked Parramatta. This was a massive upset. We were talking about it last week. Are the Cowboys good? Yeah, I think you can say now that...
Are they good, or are the Eels pretenders?
Maybe a bit of both. We're flogging the Dave Grohl Foo Fighters pretender chat last year around Parramatta. The thing is, the games that I've watched Parramatta, you watch them and you're like, fuck, they're good, man. But
then they lose like the Tigers, and then they next week they smack someone in the top 6, and then the week after that they lose to the Cowboys.
The thing with Parramatta is that they're the opposite of flat track bullies. They'll go out and beat they've beaten Melbourne in their last 3 games. Do you know what I mean? They beat good sides, and then they rock up, and I don't know if it's an attitude thing or
switch off.
Yeah, and they lose the Tigers, they get hammered by the Cowboys.
I saw the memes, the joke getting around with because Brad Arthur's son was playing 6, I believe.
Jake Arthur,
and Dylan Brown was
in the centres
again. That the Eels aren't going to win until Brad Arthur starts playing his misses at fullback. So you've got to get the whole family in. I think they were going after it. Dylan Brown was probably their better as a 6, and
he was playing lights out as a 6.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think this was maybe didn't pay dividends for them because last week was a forced move, and this week it was by design. So yeah,
anyway.
I'd expect Dylan Brown back in 6 next week.
Shout out to the Cowboys. We were saying that they hadn't beaten a team currently in the top 8, so now they have. Kyle Felt, Hattie, Scott Drinkwater been pretty good. Jason Taumalolo hasn't played at any game where you're like, that's the old Jason Taumalolo or Dally M Jason Taumalolo, but he's been consistently good. There's not been any bad JT, so that's good. We're talking about before the show started. Now that the Cowboys are 3rd, do you think the refs will start swinging some calls their way? Because Todd Payton was whinging at the start of the year that only the good teams get the calls going their way. They're 3rd, so Todd, if you want to...
Monks, you got the game. How many penalties they get?
Yeah, there you go. You can bring that up. If Todd wants to take his medicine here, the Cowboys are officially good. It's Esky approved. Are they going to start getting the penalties going their way? The other thing in this game as well, it was in Darwin, so I don't know if that suited the boys and
give more than the Eels. Yeah,
but the thing is,
the Eels play there all the time though,
and they smashed Brisbane there last year because I remember we were on a Bucks party in Cairns, and I was thinking, "Fuck, it is hot as fuck up here in Cairns." Darwin's pretty similar. I can't imagine playing rugby league up there, and they smoked Brisbane up there last year. So I don't know if you can use that as an excuse.
Yep,
not sure.
How many penalties conceded?
The boys conceded 6. Eels conceded 3.
Well, they didn't get as many penalties.
Not as many.
Not favoured yet.
Nah, not yet.
Not yet.
According to the referees guild, the Cowboys aren't officially good just yet. I think as well, I don't know if it was good sides. It was more like he was whinging about the big money sides.
Yeah, the Roosters and the
Storm. Yeah, exactly, et cetera.
Speaking of the Storm.
They're fucking really good. They've scored 120 points in the last 2 weeks.
And conceded 8?
No.
They got 2 in this one. No, the penalty off the
10. They conceded 10 and 2. They've conceded 12.
Yep.
120 to 12. That's pretty good for their for and against.
Pappenhausen, I think, is leading the league for try scorers and points.
Try scorers.
He's got 10.
I think Coates, because Coates got a hat trick today as well. So 7. I think both of them.
He's on 7.
Can you check that?
Yeah, Pappenhausen's got 10.
Pappenhausen's 10. Taylor May's on 8. Coates is on 7.
I was scrolling through that earlier and I was like, there's a lot of purple on this. There's a
lot of purple on there.
Pappenhausen
score 120 points in 2 weeks. That'll do it for you.
Yeah, well, he broke the 100 points this week already, so he's 101 now.
So what are we, round 8? So
he's kicked the most goals as well.
1/3 of the way through, on track for 300 points. I don't know. Can you imagine him scoring 30 tries in the year? Who knows? He's very good.
Well, Turbo was on pace for it. And
that's true.
But then again, last year...
How many Turbo scorers was 22, 15 games or something last year? Can you chase that up?
Yeah, and Haddo Carr was 2 ahead at 24.
That's true. Yeah, I think it was 22 in 15 games. Yeah. Monks will get that.
Anyway, last year was a bit of a ridiculous year with the 6 agains. They've kind of quieted it down, of course. Well, and changing the rules again for another year.
And going back to the Teddy chat, I think, last year when Turbo was playing as well as he was playing, then possibly there was a little bit of an argument there. But with Turbo not playing at the moment and people saying that...
And Latrell.
Yes, people saying that Teddy shouldn't be the New South Wales one. I think they got rocks for brains, to be honest.
Well, I think it's the question, can you put... Because Pappenhausen, if you want him in that squad, you got to put him at 1 because he's too small to play on.
14 injection. Yeah. But Origin, do you need an injection type player?
Yeah. And they like someone like Whiten with a bit more size, or it's been the Walkers in the past, like someone that can come in.
Well, here's one for you. They like playing fullbacks at centre last year, obviously with Turbo and Latrell. Yeah, they're not going to have.
Would you put Teddy in the?
Would you put Teddy in the centres and play Pappy at 1? That's interesting.
He definitely has more size than Pappenhausen does, but then again, he's not Turbo big or Turbo Latrell big or Whiting big.
No.
Or Stags, strength wise.
Yeah.
You never know.
It's a good problem for Blues fans to have, I think.
Yeah, it's like, I've got 5 spots. How do I play 5 fullbacks?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly right.
That's it.
Turbo last year?
Yep, 28 tries off 18 games.
there you go.
So that must include finals, I think, perhaps.
Probably,
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
a fuckload.
Yes.
Long story short, something as well that sort of we spoke about last year is should they just start the grand final now and have the Storm play the Panthers? That didn't come to fruition with Melbourne dishing up probably their worst game of the year against South in the prelim, but it's starting to get a bit of that vibe again, isn't it?
Oh, there's a tier system. It's they're one, they're the tier 1, and everyone else is below them.
Yep.
So can't wait because Penrith are 14 on the trot, I think.
Something like that. I know at home I think they're 21 on the trot now.
Yeah, haven't lost since 2019. So they're playing ridiculous. So.
And they lost a few last year, but remember there was that run as well leading into the 2020 grand final where they were on a massive fucking run as well, and that they lost the big one, and then everyone giving them the chokers tag, yada yada yada, and then they went out and said "fuck you" last year. Choke on this.
Yep.
Dragons 3 in a row. Let's talk about them briefly. We did mention that they just got over the West Tigers. If look, you had to cop this game 3 weeks ago on a Sunday afternoon. You go, Jesus Christ, this is absolute stink ass. Didn't really look like that great a game unless you're into sort of defensive trouble. Defensive minded game. But the Dragons won 3 on the trot. The Tigers had 1-2, both from field goals. So they're doing themselves both a solid and are trying to avoid that wooden spoon chat. Definitely Newcastle looking like the favourites there, having lost 6 in a row. We didn't really talk about. We talked about how good the Storm are and how good Pappy and their spine with Munster and Hughes and Grant, how good they've all been. Newcastle have been bad. That's 6 in a row now. They got smoked last week by the Eels. The whole Kalen Ponga fiasco. I think it brought a lot of unnecessary kind of attention to them. Yeah, poor
it
Nova
adds more pressure to the team now as well. They paid him, so
exactly right. And we spoke about it in our preview. None of us had them in the top 8. We all thought it would be a down year for them. Someone had mentioned that their spine had scoliosis. We're not taking credit for that one, but it's a bit of a harsh thing to say, but it's kind of come to fruition a little bit now after getting those first 2 games. And remember back in round 3. They were pushing Penrith until they had a bloke sent off as well. And then since then, it's just been an absolute shit show out of the Newcastle Knights.
They've been in the media basically since then as well.
They haven't scored a try for the last 2 games.
Yeah.
They've lost both their last 2 games with just 2 points on the board. Not good times for the Nova Castrians. Dragons looking pretty good. They had Talatau Amon start at 6. Jack Bird broke his arm on Anzac Day and then was named. So I don't know if that was mind games from Hook or if he just hates Amon so much and loves Jack Bird playing 6 that he wanted him to play with a broken arm. Not so sure. Poor Jaden Sewer, who I think as a Dragons fan, he's been pretty good this year. Coming across from South, he's done the dreaded syndesmosis. He did it on Anzac Day. It looked really nasty. A lot of weight going through. That shin and the syndesmosis, the dreaded syndesmosis, he'll be out for 10 weeks. So wishing him, as a Dragons fan, all the best with his recovery. Yeah, that will do us for the NRL. We currently have
out some AFL.
Yeah, we currently have a really good game happening at the SCG. Good game to get on a Sunday night between the Brisbane Lions and the Sydney Swans. Melbourne Demons are still undefeated. Freo look like the real deal. We'll get to them in a second. But if there's anyone that can kind of challenge, maybe we're thinking it's Brisbane or Sydney. Brisbane got out to a really big start. I think they were up 30, 40 odd points at the half, and Sydney are kind of clawed back in, but they're currently 22 points down halfway through the third quarter.
They got it back to a goal in the third quarter, but they haven't scored in the last, say, 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Buddy's back. Have pushed it back out.
Buddy's back. That finger is taped up. He had surgery on.
I think he's kicked 2 already.
I think it's 2, 3. Yeah, just from sort of following it in the background. There, we will follow this game as it unfolds. Let's quickly run through the AFL. What have we got left? We've got about 25 minutes that we can keep talking till we need to get in contact with the Delhi Capitals. Anzac Day, always a massive, massive day. We did see that because they had 2 games on. We saw the Swans get up over Hawthorn live on the podcast and then went home. I was watching most of the Dragons, but checking in and obviously caught a lot of the highlights from the Anzac Day clash between the Pies and the Dons. 11-point winners, Collingwood. Jack Ginnivan, 5 goals, Anzac Day medalist for a 19-year-old. That is pretty impressive. Pretty polarising figure, I must say. He's got the bleached blonde hair. He on his debut had the GoPro in the sheds, and he's pretty outspoken, and and
he plays for Collingwood.
And then the big one at the end of the day is Collingwood players
Can't not have controversy.
Yeah, exactly. People that aren't Pies fans love to hate Collingwood players. So Jack seems to have a little bit of that. It's early days and it's a big comparison, but Toby Green-ish, kind of small forward, been stepping up in big occasions. A guy that people love to hate. I don't know if I think as a footy player, you'd like to be compared to Toby Green, actually. As a small forward. Obviously, we talk about media beat-ups and the rest of it.
We'll get to GWS in a minute. They're a different squad with Toby Green.
Exactly. Toby always the villain, but he wins the Anzac Day medal. I might bring up actually the list of Anzac Day medalists because it's a pretty elite list of names of guys that have won the Anzac Day medal. So Darcy Parish, we'll talk about him in just a sec. He won it last year. Scott Pendlebury, Adam Treloar, Joe Danaher, Steele Sidebottom, Paul Seedsman back when he was at the Pies, Dane Swan, Scott Pendlebury, Dave Zaharakis. These are all pretty elite AFL footballers. So to win that as a 19-year-old, I think his future is definitely looking bright. Darcy Parish, I just mentioned it. He missed out on going back-to-back despite back-to-back Anzac Day medals, that is, despite having 44 disposals. I suppose the 2 arguments being losing side. Sometimes they like to reward someone from the winning side. And
he kicked 5 goals.
Ginnivan did kick 5, although touched the ball 12 times. I don't know. I think it's fair. I think a lot of it wasn't very classy either from the Bombers fans. Mark, your mod out there standing out there booing Jack Ginnivan on Anzac Day. A lot of that AFL copying a bit of stick as well for having Lime Cordial playing on Anzac Day. I actually really like me some Lime Cordial, but is it the moment? On Anzac Day, To me, I don't know. They fought for our freedom. The whole day is about paying homage to the diggers that gave us this opportunity to live in a free society and play football. If you can't have music but you can have football, is there a double standard there? But there was a lot of hard takes on it. I think Lee Matthews came out and said it was straight up disrespectful to have a band playing on Anzac Day.
Maybe if the band was playing during the minute of silence, but
that would have been a good headline. Lime Cordial gets absolutely smoked by Brisbane Broncos fan with 2 stellar right jabs and don't drop their beers to try and defend themselves. That would have been a good headline. That was a little bit polarising. But the game itself was another nice tight Anzac Day clash. Darcy Parish, the other argument, other than being on a losing side, of those 44 disposals, 33 were handballs, so he gets bulk possession. I don't know. I think there's a pretty fair argument if you get 44 on Anzac Day to give you the medal. So he misses out on going back-to-back after winning it last year. I think he also had 44 last year. I sent you boys during the week something that I saw on AFL.com, I believe. He owns 4 of the 6 most possessions for Essendon, and they started recording disposals possessions in 1965. So that does wipe out, the early period. I also can't imagine people used to get 40 odd touches back in those days.
Game's changed.
Don't really know. You'd have to ask someone that's a pretty old fella about how it was played pre 1965. But that's pretty impressive at an illustrious club like Essendon. He's an absolute ball magnet. Richmond absolutely destroyed West Coast on Friday night. We were talking a little bit about it last week. Is it time to start panicking as West Coast fans? Oh, yeah. Hit that panic button if you weren't already panicking. Getting dished by 100 points at home. Yeah, Richmond are a good club, but they're probably not the dynasty Richmond.
They're not in the top four.
Not in the top four. Dusty Less, etc., etc. Tom Lynch had himself a night, booting 7 goals. Look, I don't want to flog a dead horse. I'm cautious of the time.
Yeah, well, West Coast bad, and then the comparison though with Freo now good.
Dockers fans would be extra up and about because
have the Dockers just sucked out all the talent out of the West Coast, out of the West, and now the Premier squad are out there.
Well, the thing is, they're two very different teams. Fremantle very young,
West Coast,
very unproven. In the past, obviously they're looking shit hot this year. West Coast, we're talking about it, that 2018 grand final where they beat the Pies. There's still a lot of old heads from that team. So a lot of people like to shit on Geelong and, them being aging and this and that. Geelong's still pretty good despite going down to Fremantle. I think, maybe just a few of these boys are getting a little bit too long in the tooth and they haven't been able to replace it with the youth in the way that Fremantle has really developed some nice young players. You think about their stars in Sarong and Darcy, they're only 22, 23. Yeah. And a nice note that we had from the Rev, the AFL correspondent's team, their big defenders in Pearce, Logue and Cox were really good, keeping Hawkins to just 2 goals and Jeremy Cameron goalless. The kind of comparison to the NRL, if that's your cup of tea and you like both sports, maybe the Cowboys, I don't think anyone had expected Freo to be really bad. No one expected them to be in the
top 3.
Yeah, premiership chat. Yeah, I don't think. And the other thing about the Cowboys was, are they beating good sides? Well, Geelong's pretty fucking good. Yeah. Freo, that's in Geelong.
It was a good test for them, and they really stood up to it. I think them, and you look at the two teams they're playing now. The comparison. Very young squads with the couple old heads to give them the guidance that they need. That seems to have been the design. For those squads kind of pushing in.
Well, Freo's got the oldest head in the league in Dave Mundy. He'd be loving life as a 35-year-old, I reckon, and having blokes coming through that are 15 years younger than you and playing good footy with them. That would be quite fun, I'd imagine, for Dave Mundy. We'll have to keep moving pretty quick through the AFL. GWS getting a big win against the Crom. They smashed them in the first half. Toby Green booted 4. Jesse Hogan had 3. We were talking about last week how the tall forwards needed to step up at GWS. So 3 is a good effort, but it's obviously not kicking a bag from Jesse Hogan. You'd want to see him.
But the infusion of Toby Green, though, I think gives them more freedom.
Completely different side with Toby Green,
because the opponents have to account for him, and then it gives the others a bit more freedom to get one-on-one matchups, etc., to get balls to then kick goals. So the Lions have gone on a bit of a run here too.
They have, yes. They played a very good first quarter and a very good third quarter here at the Brisbane Lions. Melbourne just got home over Hawthorn. Tell you what, shout out to the Hawks. Hawks fans.
Well, another one of those squads that have come.
Yeah, no one really thought.
Come on strong.
Exactly, young squad. Sam Mitchell. Nearly said Tom Mitchell. both there. Sam Mitchell, young coach. Doing pretty well in his first year. Obviously, huge shoes to fill with Alistair Clarkson. Did you see Clarko was at one of the basketball games over in America?
No.
Yeah, I think.
I'm assuming over there they didn't even know who he was.
No, I can't imagine. Not too many people would have known who he was. He was going through it must have looked like he did get some kind of special treatment because he was going not through the main gate. No, I don't know, because I saw him going through and Clay Thompson rocking up on a push bike.
Yeah.
And
I saw this.
Did you see that?
Yeah, Clay Thompson.
And Clay Thompson and Clarko's like getting his bag checked and shit. And Clay Thompson just rides through on a push bike and just walks straight in. But yeah, Clarko's obviously there, enjoying some of the NBA playoffs. Anyways, that aside, Melbourne are undefeated. That's 14 straight for them, going into last year.
Very Penrith.
They're big, World of Basketball comparison again. They're big three in Gawn, Oliver and Petrarca. Too good. It is it's like an NBA big three as well, where Gawn is your centre and then, maybe Petrarca's your bullish small forward and then Clary's your point guard. You can clip that, I reckon. That's not a bad little analogy there. But Hawthorn, very impressive. You can definitely hold your head high going out to the MCG and keeping it within 10 points against the Ds. Keep powering through. Power through. Didn't mean to do that. Yeah. They had a 1 point win over the Saints.
A very low scoring game.
Very sloppy, wet cans conditions. Power have won 2 in a row after being the butt of everyone's jokes just a few weeks ago. And 2 in a row in the AFL with the bottom end of the ladder gets you up a fair bit. I think they have gone from 18th to 13th. Yeah, 13th. 13th. So their percentage is actually 94.6, so they haven't really been blasted by too many teams just yet. In 2 weeks they've gone from the Woodensburn position and jumped north, Essendon, GWS and the Gold Coast. Who would have thought West Coast sitting in 18th at the moment? Unlucky for the Saints. They've been playing some pretty good footy this year. Didn't see any of this again. Was having a few beers, etc., etc. We'll keep it moving. I did see a fair bit of this, and I would have been very, very annoying because I was a few beers deep. And Blues won by a fair bit, 60 odd on nearly. No, what is that? 50 points. Quick maths. Yep. Coming back off 2 losses with a big win over the Kangaroos. Yes, it is just the Kangaroos, I guess. But good to see the Blues back in the winner's circle, going to 5 and 2.
Who's worse, Kangaroos or West Coast at the moment?
I think West Coast.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the Roos have been belted a few times. I think Brisbane put a big score on them. I think the Bulldogs dished them, I think, pretty bad. Yeah. But West Coast always have that advantage of the fortress playing out west,
They did.
And when you're getting dicked by 100 points at home, I think that's when you got to start going, Jesus. Which is, who would have thought we would have been having that conversation at the start of the year? Who's worse out of North Melbourne and West Coast? Blues, 5 and 2. Paddy Cripps probably gets the 3 votes again. Could you imagine if he wins a Brownlow after being as banged up as he was last year? Early days, obviously, but multiple games where he would have got the 3 votes. Big Harry Mackay, 4 goals for him. Charlie Curnow, 3 for him. We didn't get the brother-on-brother action because Ben Mackay was suspended, so didn't get to see Roos fullback Mackay play on Blues full forward Mackay. Pies Suns, 115-90. Pies win again. This just happened just before. Didn't see any of this. Did you boys catch any of this? I can't imagine you did. Let's have a look.
It's a decent score from the Suns.
The Suns aren't.
They're not bad though. They shouldn't be in the conversation with those aforementioned teams that we just said. So
took Miller 36, 140. Fantasy points, 2 goals. Water is wet. He is a very, very good footballer. Jack Crisp, the highest fantasy scorer there for the Pies. Levi Casbolt kicked 4 goals for. Typical Levi, could have kicked 8. Poor fella, he never kicks them straight. He's been interesting actually for Gold Coast. I thought as a Blues fan, did kind of think he was a little bit washed up. I think I said last year that Levi's the gene brand should get after him because he's a very good looking rooster. I think he's got a pretty tidy rig. I think he might have had a chance to pursue some kind of modelling career after his footy career. It looks like he's still a pretty good footy player. That's a bit of a resurgence from him, but they didn't get the bickies in this one. 4 goals to Brody Myercheck, and that man that we're talking about at the top of the segment, Jack Ginnivan, kicked 3. Pies are rolling. A lot of people thought they were going to be not much chop, and they get a win.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Bombers, Bulldogs. This as well started.
Bulldogs in front.
Last I saw was Bulldogs in front. 103 to 71. So Dogs coming out 32-point winners in this one. Poor Bomber, they're not winning games, but they're never really getting pantsed too hard. What do we got? Big Pete Wright, 4 goals there for the Dons. And who was the main ball winners? Josh Dunkley fucking shocked me. 29 for him and 2 goals. By far the best in the fantasy realm for the Bulldogs. They needed a win there. They were really reeling. They've dropped a fair few games that people didn't expect them to drop. Adelaide last week being a prime example of that one. Carlton, few like that. I suppose our mate of the Esky, Macca, will be very happy to see the Dogs at least getting the 4 points in that one. And the game that we're watching live, Swans Lions, is at 3/4 time, 83 to 54. So Brisbane leading by nearly 30 points there. Buddy back, like we mentioned, but Brisbane.
How many goals has Buddy got?
4.
He's kicked 4. Yeah. That's not bad with a busted finger. Maybe I'm just a massive soft cock at the moment because I've been missing a few games with a broken finger. Again, me, Buddy Franklin, nice solid comparison there.
I was going to say, you kicked 4 goals in a decade. Not
hey. When played me 100th last year, we looked it up. It was 53 or something. And I think that would have been, if you looked at, because I have played 3rd grade, 2nd grade and a touch of 1st grade here in Canberra, I think a lot of that 53 would have been in 3rd grade. Looks like the Lions, it'd be pretty hard to lose from here. We've spoken about it. They're your team, Sean. You watch them most weeks. I think that, we talk about windows and they've been in that window for quite some time now.
I think this year's the best footy they've been playing, though.
Yeah, and Lachie Neale, he's kind of a bit Paddy Cripps-esque in that he was...
Lachie healthy one, and then they've added in the forward line, extra talent there, and they're kicking goals.
Yeah,
so, that's the main thing. And getting Rayner back.
Rayner's playing well.
Charlie
well.
kicking straight in the last couple of weeks.
They'll
Joe Danaher, Font, they've been good.
Danaher's been great. They'll get Hipwood back halfway through the season to bolster that forward line. The Neale Cripps comparison being that Neale was busted balls last year, wasn't he? Like everything that could have gone wrong.
Yeah, I think he had 2 bad shoulders.
He had a syndesmosis, I think. He was really banged up. So I suppose that's the comparison there. From a former Brownlow winner to possibly this year's Brownlow winner. Who knows?
Neil's got 30 disposals this game.
30 and it's 3rd quarter. Yeah, he's a very good footy player. Speaking of, Buddy Franklin is lining up for his 5th just here. He's fucking greased up. He's got
the baby on.
He's groundskeeper Willie tonight, isn't he? Greased me up. Woman lunch lady Doris has absolutely battered Buddy Franklin, and he's kicked out 5 goals for Buddy. Yeah,
keep him in it.
You kick 1,000 goals, you can break your finger and come back and kick 5. Well done to you, Budweiser. All right, what do we got? 6:55. Probably need to wrap this up in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
NBA playoffs. Let's have a quick look at the bracket. Monks, if you wouldn't mind bringing that up. I think I'd also have it on my computer. It is a good time to talk NBA, of course. They didn't play today, but all the first round fixtures series are all done. Yep. And we now go into the conference semi-finals. So starting in the East, we'll have the 1st seed Miami Heat taking on the 4th seed Philadelphia 76ers. Now, can you please, Monks, have a look? Joel Embiid, he's going to miss a few games. This is tough for the 76ers to potentially the MVP this year, to not have him when you're taking on a number 1 seed in Miami. Yep. It's going to be a very tall order. Whilst you chase that one up, a really intriguing matchup will be the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks taking on the 2nd seed Boston Celtics, who just swept the Brooklyn Nets. Everyone was really, excited for that matchup between Boston and Brooklyn. Turned out being the only sweep.
Yep.
So Boston, I really love the way that they play the game.
They play like team ball.
Very team focused, defensive.
Very defensive.
Very good. I think
the Nets didn't like that at all.
Getting Al Horford was big, and their other big centre, Williams. I think he might be coming back as well. Obviously, we won't have a team for tomorrow. It's pretty hard to get teams for basketball. But if they get their starting centre back as well. To come back. I'm just checking that he hasn't.
It'll be really interesting to see how they go against Milwaukee. of course, with Giannis over there, the big freak.
Robert Williams, who I'm talking about, he did play 14 minutes in the last Brooklyn game, so probably load management kind of thing. So look for him to play more minutes. I wonder if he will get Giannis duties for bits of it.
Well, that's the challenge. If they can shut him down, that's a long way to go into beating the
Giannis,
but very, very hard to do. No one's done it yet.
Giannis was so good against the Bulls. Obviously, everyone knows what he did in the playoffs and in the finals last year. And a lot of people haven't ruled him out from winning the MVP this year. When you talk about value to your team, I suppose
he's still got good numbers. Like they're
bloody oath.
they're not bad.
And he does things that Joker and Embiid can't do. I suppose, if it's purely a numbers thing, then you look at the numbers that say like a Nikola Jokic puts up. You kind of got to put it, maybe him. It's a reason why he's a favourite. But if you look at a guy, with intangibles, and if there's one guy that you want on the court that can win you a basketball game single-handedly, I think it's the Greek Freak is probably the MVP in that regard. So two tasty series coming up. How'd you go with Embiid?
Embiid. So fractured orbital bone socket, out indefinitely by all accounts.
Orbital bone.
Yeah.
Do you reckon he'll wear the mask and to play?
I'd say so.
Didn't he do something similar a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think I remember seeing him in a mask as well.
Yeah.
Who do we shout out before? Rishi Darwin. Maybe big Rishi Darwin needs to call Joel Embiid. There's pretty big discrepancies in their pay. I'd imagine he misses probably a few games and then comes back with the mask. Now, this is one of those injuries that you essentially it's a pain kind of. It's not going to stop you from being able to play. The concern obviously being is if you do cop a stray elbow.
It depends how bad. I guess
further fuck up your eye bone, which is not a nice thing to have.
Depends how bad it is originally. Like, does it need surgery or anything like that to realign anything? Or
that's a good question. I think for orbitals, Dr. Peps here. Normally we get Dr. Sean, but Dr. Peps is going to make an unqualified opinion here. I think it's got to be like the eye has to be compromised for them to operate on it. You hear about UFC fighters fracturing their orbitals,
putting plates and things
all,
in it to help
all the time. Who was the guy who they did a CT scan and? I think it's UFC fighter, fractured orbital. He posted the CT scan, and
his whole
face was fucked up. Like it was shattered. I think for them to operate, it's got to be like quite bad for them to think about putting plates in. Again, this is coming from a guy that barely passed a physio degree, so fucking take what I say with a grain of salt.
But by all accounts, we don't know how bad Embiid's is.
And we've spoken about it on the podcast before. It's near impossible to get information out of the NBA. We're so lucky here with the way that the NRL and the AFL releases their information. You know time frames, the extent of injuries on most players. The NBA is a different kettle of fish over there.
Yep. I don't think I'll be able to find that one. But just back on Joel Embiid, so it was back in the 2017-2018 season. He fractured his left orbital bone.
And it was the same one?
I think it might be the opposite side.
Unlucky.
Yes, it's not. You don't want to be fucking with your eyes.
Right.
So there's both. No.
Sorry. He's right. And he was out for 3 weeks.
3 weeks, so potentially could miss the whole series. Yeah. Not good news for 76ers fans. They had to endure Ben Simmons last year and, sitting out in half of this season. And now they've lost their best player at the most crucial time. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there.
So do you think the West is potentially more tasty in matchups?
Interesting. I don't know, because I think that Bucks-Celtics matchup is elite. You'd think Miami, given that that Philly will be without their star player, they should win that, you'd think. I don't know. I guess, well, by that logic, because you've got one tasty matchup and one where you think the Heat should do the 76ers, and you've got probably two pretty tasty matchups over here in the West.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe storylines, like you look at, the Booker versus Luka, and then you got Curry versus Morant. How
far off is Booker? Because it's been about 10 days with that hamstring. I think they were saying it wasn't too bad a hammy. Is it going to be 3 to 4 weeks? He's halfway through that, so does he miss the first few games? When do we get Big Dick Devin Booker back? That's a tasty matchup. And we saw Dallas play okay when Luka wasn't playing as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see can they knock off the Phoenix Suns. No one really expected the Pelicans to take two games off them. Obviously, the big caveat being the Booker injury. One of those ones was the one when he did his hamstring. So hard to replace him mid game. You can't game plan for it when it happens during the game.
Yeah. I think that one on the bottom left there, that's the tasty one I'm quite interested in. After watching Morant bring him back in those series.
And playing a different role. He wasn't scoring many points, but his assists were unbelievable.
Well,
he wasn't
still averaging like 20 a game.
But
not 40.
Exactly. He wasn't putting up those jar numbers that we saw throughout the year, but then he was making players around him better, as in Desmond Bean. I was born in the dark. 2 weeks in a row making that joke. But yeah, I think, and obviously everyone likes, I'm generalising here, but I think everyone is a fan of the way that the Grizzlies go about it. I think people outside of the Bay Area maybe are starting to get a bit sick of the Warriors, although they seem to be one of those teams that just, for whatever reason, maybe it is the charisma of the Splash Brothers and the way that Curry goes about things, that they don't seem to be too hated. But I was going back over the recent finals, and last year we saw the Warriors stink it up a little bit, Clay out all year, a bit of an off year for them. But I think before that, it's 5 finals in a row that the Warriors have been there. So, I don't have a team in the NBA. I'm kind of like where I was at with the NFL as a younger fan, where before I, for whatever reason, I went with the Green Bay Packers. I kind of just love the whole thing, and I love the storylines, and I like different players. But there's teams that I don't really like. But I don't know. I don't really have a horse in the race. So I would love to see Memphis win this series. I just think Golden State is starting to look like that old Golden State. A lot was spoken about Steph and his shooting woes. He's been shooting the ball pretty well in the playoffs. Jordan Poole has been electric. Clay's been really good. We saw Wiggins bloody be an all-star this year. A lot of chat around was he actually an all-star, but they're a pretty good team on paper. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. And we did at the top of the show talk about the Wolves dropping leads like they shouldn't have. So they got pushed by Minnesota, and they're going to run into a pretty red hot